What's your opinion about what's going on in Afghanistan right now?
Well, first of all, I do support the overall decision that President Biden made. But I would be a critic of the lack of planfulness that needed to go into being prepared for what's happening right now. I recently supported legislation to provide the resources for not only bringing home U.S. nationals, but the support increasing the special immigrant visa for the many Afghans who assisted our troops and our mission in Afghanistan who are at great risk, as well as expanding that to other vulnerable populations who are at risk. But it's so distressing to see how disorderly the evacuation process is. And I just think we need to stand by our allies and people who have served selflessly for so long.
And approaching the 20-year anniversary of September 11th, I mean, certainly people are reflecting back, especially on September 14th. Looking back on your vote for the authorization of military force, I mean, how do you feel, about your decision looking back on it? Do you regret voting in favor of it?
I do not. It was nearly unanimous in the Congress. And what was important to me, and I remember, those days of 9/11 and post 9/11, I was sort of singed on my brain, as you might imagine. I was in the House of Representatives then. And, what the implication was, what was next. There's such simultaneous uncertainty. It was important to me that authorization of use of military force be very narrowly drafted. But it was to go after the perpetrators, planners, and those who aided and abetted them. And I believe we did that, and I believe we did that in fairly short order. And I believe then there was what we might call mission creep. Okay, we're going to stay there longer, even though we've driven Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan and killed many of the Al-Qaeda planners and folks who had gotten safe haven in Afghanistan. And we got after a lot of their enablers. That would be the time to exit. And I think that is fairly consistent in the years following, that we should not have a permanent engagement in Afghanistan, but that was not the direction of presidents of both parties. And I think Biden finally realized that, if you read the words of the authorization of use of military force, it's very specific. And this should not be viewed as an open-ended war on terror. We've always had terrorism in the world, we probably always will, and we have to take each challenge individually.
Do you feel that the Biden administration is going to be sufficiently vetting the refugees that come into Fort McCoy? I think that the state senator who represents Fort McCoy thinks that's not taking place or isn't going to. Do you feel that we won't have a repeat of, for instance, some of the problems with the Cubans, the Muriel boat lift in 1980, there were issues over here?
Well, I think that a lot of vetting has been done. The SIV list has been put together, frankly, over many years. And while the pandemic had caused challenges with regard to embassies and consulates operating at full staffing, we're beginning to address that. But in terms of the care, I think right now there is a focus on getting everyone out and to a place where we can, with more personnel, continue that and make sure that we've completed it. This is very different from the situation of the Cuban situation where it was the Castro government that basically decided who they were going to send, and here it is ours. And it won't be perfect, but I do believe that a significant amount of work has been done, and when we have thousands troops deployed to McCoy, which is what I'm hearing is in the process, we'll have a lot more personnel to assist a smaller group of people than you have at Kabul International Airport right now.
We might be running out of time. Last question, if that's okay.
So and I just wanted to, certainly Ron Johnson has pointed out, just stepping back on this infrastructure bill for a second, that it's going to be adding, unnecessarily to our national debt. How would you respond to that critique?
Well, first of all, the intent between this infrastructure package, the bipartisan infrastructure package, and the bill that we're working on right now that I believe is very closely associated with it through budget reconciliation. The plan is to pay for it. And I know there's been some question about some of the funding sources that were identified in the bipartisan plan, particularly the one that got the most attention was going after tax evasion through cryptocurrency. How you predict how much resources that's going to bring in is kind of tricky right now. So, there's certainly been some discussion there. But in terms of the budget reconciliation measure, we want to make sure that it contains a really sizable tax cut for low-income, working, and middle-income people, and to reverse some of the tax handouts, benefits, and cuts that President Trump gave to the very richest. We were just talking about internet, and some of the billionaires, got their money through digital businesses. I think if you can afford to go to outer space, you can afford to pay taxes. And we have too many billionaires who aren't paying their fair share.